Hey dads, welcome to Father Friend, a podcast for dads who want to lean in, lead well, and love big. I'm Dr. Mike Ayers. When kids are little, a father's voice is like thunder and music all at once. It can stop them in their tracks, or it can make them feel 10 feet tall. You can see it on their faces, the way their eyes light up when you notice them, or how they flinch when your tone sharpens. Our words define their world. When they're toddlers, your voice is the soundtrack of safety. When you read the bedtime story, when you whisper, "I love you," when you correct them gently, they learn that your words mean something. Then as they hit the school years, what I call quadrant 2 in the Father Friend model, that's ages 7 to 12, everything starts to change. They still listen to you, but they start to hear others too. Teachers, coaches, classmates, they all start to weigh in on who your child is and what they're worth. By middle school, they're scanning the world for cues. Do I belong here? Am I liked? Am I enough? And by the time they hit the teenage years, their friends' voices take the spotlight for a while. But here's the truth that doesn't change. No voice ever carries more weight than yours. Even when it feels like they're tuning you out, the eye rolls, the short answers, the slammed doors, your words are still landing somewhere. They might pretend they don't care, but they're listening with their hearts. Every "I'm proud of you," every "I love you," every "I believe in you" gets stored deep inside, and every "what's wrong with you" or "you never think" gets stored there too. Your voice becomes their inner voice. The Bible paints this picture perfectly at Jesus' baptism. Before he ever performed a miracle, before he ever taught a crowd, before he ever called a disciple, his Father declared something from heaven. "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." I've always loved that scene, not just because it's holy, but because it's human. In one sentence, God the Father gives his Son what every child longs to hear: belonging, affection, approval. This is my Son, that's identity. Whom I love, that's affection. With him I am well pleased, that's approval. And remember, Jesus hadn't done a single public thing yet. This wasn't approval for performance. It was delight without condition. God was saying, you don't have to earn this. You already have it. That's the voice every child needs from their father. You belong to me. I love you. I'm proud of who you're becoming. Most of us dads want to give that message, but if we're honest, life gets noisy. Work demands more. We get tired. We get distracted. We get critical. Sometimes we confuse correction with connection. We focus on what needs fixing instead of what needs affirming. And slowly, our words shift from building to breaking. James, the brother of Jesus, wrote that the tongue is like a fire, a small spark that can set an entire forest ablaze. That's true in every home. One word spoken in anger can burn a bridge that takes years to rebuild. But the opposite is also true. One word of blessing can heal something you didn't even know was wounded. I learned that the hard way. Years ago, my son Brandon and I were playing basketball in the driveway. I don't remember why, but I decided to quote unquote motivate him by trash talking a little. I started calling him a baby. "Come on, you big baby," I said. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "Please don't call me that." And what did I do? I doubled down. I kept saying it. I thought I was toughening him up. I'm not even sure why I did it, but I did. He ended up winning that game, close score, but instead of smiling or celebrating, he walked straight into the house. I could tell something was wrong. Later that day, it hit me. Brandon once had a coach who'd called him that same word, baby, one time. Just once, but it stuck. That word became a wound, and when I used it, I reopened it. I wish I could take that day back. I wish I could have seen in real time what I see now, that my words had weight far beyond that moment. What I thought was joking felt like betrayal to him. Because when a father speaks, it doesn't sound like anyone else. My voice didn't just come from another player on the court or from a coach. It came from Dad. That's the thing about words. They don't expire. They stay in circulation in your child's mind long after you've forgotten what you've said. Psychologists call this internalized voice. Dr. Lawrence Steinberg says that during adolescence, kids are like emotional sponges, absorbing and interpreting everything that happens to them. And the way they interpret life depends on the voices they trust the most. In most homes, that's still dad. Whether you realize it or not, your words become the filter through which they interpret the world. You say, "You can do this." They think, "Maybe I can." You say, "You'll never learn." They think, "Maybe I can't." You say, "I'm proud of you." They think, "I matter." You say, "You always mess up." They think, "That's who I am." It's sobering when you stop to think about it. Now, I'm not saying every word has to be wrapped in positivity and sweetness. Real fatherhood involves correction. We're not perfect. Kids need guidance and truth. But truth delivered without love sounds like rejection, and correction without connection feels like rejection. Some dads think that encouragement makes their kids soft. It doesn't do that. It actually makes them strong. Because when a child feels secure in your love, they take bigger risks. They can fail safely. They can grow without fear. Thomas Carlyle once said, "Call a man brave and you help him become so." The same applies to your kids. Call your daughter kind and she'll look for ways to show kindness. Tell your son he's thoughtful and he'll start to notice others more. Affirm character and they'll grow into it. This isn't flattery. This is formation. You're not inflating their ego. You're identifying evidence of growth and helping them see it too. I try to make my affirmations specific. Instead of "good job," which I do say a lot, I try to say, "I noticed how patient you were when your sister was frustrated. That shows kindness." Or, "The way you stuck with your homework even when it was hard makes me proud of your determination." Those moments of naming character are like the bricks that build self-worth. But the opposite bricks can pile up too. Words that wound have just as much power, if not more. "You're lazy. Why can't you be more like your brother? You always mess up. You're just like your mother when she's moody. You never think." Those phrases might seem small, but they echo for decades. I've sat across from grown men who still hear their father's voice in moments of failure. One man told me, "Every time I mess up at work, I still hear my dad saying, 'What's wrong with you?' And he's been gone for 15 years, but that voice still speaks to me." When we speak shame, it lodges deep. Shame doesn't say, "You made a mistake." It says, "You are a mistake." And that's a hard lie to silence later in life. The beautiful thing, though, is that healing can happen through the same instrument that caused the hurt. The same mouth that wounded can become the mouth that heals. I've gone back to my kids before and said, "Hey, I blew it. What I said earlier wasn't right. I'm sorry." And that may sound simple, but I can't tell you how powerful it is when a father humbles himself. Kids remember those moments. They remember that dad was strong enough to apologize. That's what words can do. They can build trust or rebuild it. Psychologist Albert Bandura talks about self-efficacy, the belief that you can influence outcomes through your actions. Children don't develop that belief by hearing empty praise. They build it through effort, mastery, and affirmation that connects effort to growth. Dr. Carol Dweck calls it a growth mindset. Praising effort over talent. You worked hard on that problem is far more empowering than "you're so smart." When you affirm effort, you teach your child that persistence matters more than perfection. You teach them they can improve, that failure is feedback, not identity. Think about how different that feels in real life. You're in the stands at a Little League game. Your son strikes out with the bases loaded. He walks back to the dugout, shoulders slumped. What he needs in that moment isn't a lecture about keeping his eye on the ball. What he needs after the game is, "I love watching you play, and I'm proud of the way you keep showing up." Or your daughter bombs a math test that she studied hard for. Instead of, "You need to focus more," maybe it's, "I saw how much time you put in. Let's look at what didn't click, because I know you've got what it takes to figure it out." Words like those don't lower the standard, they raise resilience. I think about the summer that my oldest son, Ryan, learned his left-handed layup. He didn't just gain a skill, he gained identity. Every day he went out there and worked on it. By the end of the summer, he could drive left as easily as going right. That wasn't just practice. It was character formation, discipline, persistence, pride in improvement. I celebrated the layup, but I praised the young man he was becoming. And now, years later, that same character shows up in his work, his marriage, and his parenting. Because the same persistence he learned in the driveway is the same persistence he brings to life. That's the bigger picture. When you affirm process and character, you're not just shaping childhood, you're shaping adulthood. But you don't have to wait for milestones to use your voice well. Some of the most powerful affirmations happen in ordinary moments. In the car after school, when you're fixing dinner, when you're tucking them in. Hey, I love the way you handled yourself with your friend today. Or I appreciate you taking responsibility for that. Or you make this house better just by being in it. And those words plant seeds that grow into confidence. And sometimes the timing matters even more than the wording. There are moments when a child is fragile, embarrassed, ashamed, and the father's voice can either crush or cover them. When your daughter comes home crying because her friends excluded her, she doesn't need a problem solved. She needs a heart seen. That must have hurt, you say. I'm sorry that happened. I love you. Those are the kinds of words that become armor for them. When your teenage son confesses he's messed up, maybe it's grades, maybe it's attitude, the easy reaction is anger. But what if instead of shaming, you started with empathy? Thank you for telling me that. That took courage. That doesn't excuse what you did, but I'm glad you told me. I can tell you this, kids remember how you respond in their weakest moments. Some of us dads grew up without that kind of voice ourselves. Maybe your father was silent, harsh, or absent. Maybe affirmation feels foreign, even awkward to you. But here's the good news. You can start a new pattern. You can be the first voice of blessing in your family line. When you say, I love you, and it feels weird because you never heard it growing up, say it anyway. The awkwardness fades. The impact doesn't. I met a dad who once told me, I didn't really know how to talk to my son, so I started writing vulnerable things on notes. Every morning before school, he'd leave one sentence on a sticky note. I'm proud of you, he'd say. You're stronger than you think. I believe in you. Years later, when that son got married, he gave his dad a box filled with every single note. He'd kept them all. That's the power of words. They last. I sometimes wonder what the world would look like if more fathers spoke like God did over Jesus that day. This is my son. I love him. I'm pleased with him. Imagine if that were the normal soundtrack in every home. Imagine how insecurities would fade, how many addictions wouldn't start, how many marriages would be stronger because sons and daughters grew up knowing they were already loved. And listen, none of this means we get it right all the time. You won't. I didn't. But one of the greatest gifts you can give your child is a redeemed voice, one that keeps learning how to speak life even after it's failed before. That's the beautiful truth. Your voice can change tone midlife. You can become the father your child needs, even if you weren't that before, because grace doesn't just redeem lives, it redeems voices, and we can start something new. So maybe your first step this week is just awareness. Listen to yourself. Pay more attention to your tone. Ask, what story am I writing in my child's heart with my words? If you've been harsh, apologize. If you've been distant, re-engage. If you've been silent, speak. One of my favorite things to tell dads is this. When you criticize your child, they don't stop loving you. They stop loving themselves. So speak life. Build up. Don't tear down. Correct with grace. Encourage with truth. And if you need a starting place, here's one. Tonight before bed, tell your child 3 things. Who they are, what you love about them, and what you're proud of. Something like, you're my son. I love how kind you are. I'm proud of the way you treat people. It's that simple. Who they are, what you love about them, and what you're proud of. It may feel small, but I promise it's enormous. Because long after your voice stops echoing in your house, it will echo in their hearts. There will come a day when your child is grown, maybe holding their own son or daughter, and in a moment of struggle or joy, they'll hear your voice again. The things you said, the tone you used, the words you chose, and they'll either think, I can do this, or I'll never measure up. That's the long reach of fatherhood. Your words are shaping generations you'll never meet. So let's make them count. Let's be fathers whose voices heal, not harm. Fathers who speak identity, affection, and approval. Fathers who use words to bless, to correct with love, to affirm what's good and true. Fathers whose homes echo with the same sentence God spoke over his son. You belong to me. I love you. I'm pleased with you. Say it often. Say it loud. Say it until it becomes the voice they hear when the world tries to tell them otherwise. Because one day, when they're older and life gets hard, they'll need to hear that voice again. Let it be yours. Let it be strong, gentle, steady, and full of grace. That's the power of a father's words. Thanks for listening today. I'm Dr. Mike Ayers. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with other dads. I'd love to hear from you. Email me at mikea@fatherfriend.net with comments, questions, and your biggest takeaways. For more tools, resources, and real talk on fatherhood, visit fatherfriend.net or follow on social media @ThinkingDads. See you next time.